Love lives here.
Here at Centers for Spiritual Living Worldwide, we are working with the theme this year of Living Everyday Wonder. And this month in particular, we are looking at the emotional aspect of our lives, our emotional self, our emotional world. Because as we know, if we're living everyday wonder, we're living and we're experiencing the divine in our everyday moments, our everyday lives. And we can look at our lives in different sections and different aspects. And this month we are choosing to focus on the aspect of our emotions. And earlier this month, we looked at joy. And we looked at anger. And we looked at fear. And today we get to explore sadness. You see, emotions, as we've been talking about, emotions are energy in motion, emotion, they're energy in motion. And so the way we are to live with our emotions, the way we are to experience our emotions, the way we are to express our emotions, is we are called to, invited to, experience them in a very natural way, the way perhaps our four-legged critters, our companion animals do. They experience fear and it moves through their bodies to completion. They experience feelings and it moves through their bodies to completion. It moves through their lives to completion. An emotion has about a really 90-second lifespan, but what happens is we have a tendency to either want to keep that emotion and hold on to it like joy, because, oh, joy is happy, joy is fun, I'm feeling joy. Then we try and hold on to it, or we experience anger or fear or sadness, and perhaps we resist feeling those feelings, or we repress feeling those feelings, or we get into our story and we recycle those feelings. And so then those feelings then become a mood. Those feelings can, when we recycle or we repress them or we resist them, then they have a tendency to become a mood. And they tend to linger because we haven't expressed them and we haven't felt them completely, fully through our bodies. But as humans, what we know is that these emotions, these feelings, what they are is they're another way of experiencing and expressing the divine in all of its glory, in all of its magnificence. That a feeling, there is no good feeling or bad feeling, there's just a feeling. And we assign it. We've assigned it. Oh, I like this one, I don't like this one. This one's good, this one's bad. But really, it's just a feeling, it's information, and all of our emotions, each and every emotion offers us wisdom. Each emotion offers us a way of accessing information with the divine, of spirit. And each emotion offers us the ability to continue to evolve in consciousness, that it serves the evolution of our individual and collective souls. This is what emotions are for. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah? No? Maybe? Yeah? Right? That we have these feelings. I was like, oh, wow, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to show me? What is this here to bring my awareness to? And so their feelings rise and fall like the tides. They rise and fall like the waves. And when we get attached to one feeling in particular, then we have a tendency to want to push the river. We have a tendency to want to resist the waves. But what we can feel, what we know, is that if we simply allow the feeling to be and allow it to express, and we ride it out through to its fullest completion, then what's on the other side is equanimity. What's on the other side is peace. I've been thinking a lot about this month, and it's just like, all right, so am I happy right now? No. Am I sad right now? No. Am I angry right now? No. Am I fearful right now? No. So what is it that I'm feeling the majority of my day? Equanimity and peace. When we're just kind of going through the day, paying attention and being present with what is and allowing the emotion to fall through or flow through and experience it, what we normally find is that there's peace or equanimity on the other end. And we can experience this peace and equanimity on a regular, consistent basis by allowing the rise and fall, by being present with what is, by being mindful and being fully present to what we are experiencing, to what simply is present in our lives in any given moment. And when we are present with what is, then we can experience the everyday wonder. When we are fully present with what is, that is where we find the divine. That is where we experience the divine. Our Ed's and my Catholic priest friend posted something from Richard Rohr the other day, and Ed goes, "Oh, Father Ed posted this." His name's also Ed, by the way. Father Ed posted this. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, and it's Richard Rohr. God is present always. It's just our awareness that's missing. And so when we can be present with what is, when we can be present in the moment, present with the joys and present with the sorrows, present with all of it, then that is where we meet the divine. We don't meet the divine just here in this room on Sunday morning. We don't just meet the divine on our meditation cushions every morning. We meet the divine with every breath, with every encounter, with every experience, if we are awake and aware and open to that experience. So last week, right, we had the Spirit of Art event. Wasn't that fabulous? So we gave you some rough numbers last week, but I have closer numbers this week. So we brought in over $10,000 worth, and then after expenses and everything, we raised $7,022.84. That's amazing. But even more amazing than the money that we raised, which is fantastic, don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting that, so thank you. But even more than the money that we raised was the community that came together, the love that was in the room, the celebration that was in the room, and the beauty and the aesthetics and the art and the creativity and the celebration of that and the celebration of being in community with so many people. And so many people from the larger Riverside community, the Inland Empire, the Inland Valleys, were here celebrating and sharing their art and their love and their joy and their life. And it was absolutely fantastic. Those of you who are here, would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. We had over 105 people come through the doors that evening. It was fantastic. And today, we are headed down to the park for yet another celebration, a celebration of community as well. And, where two or more of us are gathered, there shall be food. So we're having a community picnic today, right? And this is the first time we've been able to have the picnic since 2019. So being able to come together as a community and being able to celebrate and laugh and love and have a frolicking good time with our people and all the people in the park today, because there's lots going on in the park today, evidently. But all of the people in the park today, that we get to laugh and celebrate and be present with that. So we have these joys. We have these moments of celebration and openness and fantastic and yummy, delicious, the high tide, if you will. And then this week we've also had the low tide. So the mention of the tidal, low tide, or high tide. Here in our beloved community with our folks, just our folks right here, with those gathered here this day and those who are gathered online, we've lost 5 loved ones. Our community members have experienced the loss of 5 very close and dear loved ones. One as recently as yesterday. Earlier in the week, and so there's sadness, there's grief. Earlier in the week, 19 children and 2 adults were murdered in Texas. And so we have a national mourning, a deep sadness that we are experiencing collectively. And then the following day was the second anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. And so there's a deep sadness and a deep grieving and a deep mourning there as well, that we feel, that we experience collectively. And these are not the first time that these events have happened. And there's been other events this month alone. Buffalo, 10 people lost their lives. Orange County, 5. Among the countless, well, let's count it, over 1 million people in the past 2 years for COVID. And so how appropriate it is that this day we get to be present with, and we get to presence sadness. We get to presence grief. We get to presence what it is that we are feeling. And yet at the same time, we can experience joy and laughter in the midst of pain and sorrow. These two things are not mutually exclusive. It's part of the rhythm and the cycle of life itself. Ed mentioned in his opening invocation there that the depth of our sadness, the depth of our grief, is a reflection of the depth of our love, the depth of our compassion, the depth of our caring. And so when we listen and we open and we turn within and we remember the love, we remember the life, we remember the joy, we remember the compassion, that then eases some of the sadness. It eases some of the grief. And it's not about trying to stuff the grief, stuff sadness. It's about being present with it. The Disney movie Inside Out is a great example of this, where there's a little girl and she and her family have relocated from Minnesota to San Francisco, and she's she doesn't know exactly how she's feeling, but she thinks she should be feeling joy. And so the main characters really are her emotions, and Joy keeps trying to make her happy and sing her songs and create these long-term memories of joy and happiness and joy and happiness. And sadness just kind of comes along and wants to touch one of the core memories. And Joy freaks out. It's like, no, you can't touch that. She can't have a core memory of sadness. No, don't. And so then the movie ensues, right? For an hour and a half. But the upshot is that it is the sadness when Joy finally relinquishes and says yes, and it's the sadness that the little girl is able to experience. In the sadness, then she feels more connected with her family again. She feels reconnected. She feels being able to fully express who she is and not having to pretend to be happy, not having to pretend to be experiencing or feeling something that she's not. In her sadness, love and compassion envelop her. And her family lifts her. Her community lifts her and supports her and loves her. And then there is a greater experience of collective joy, of collective movement forward in consciousness, of collective experience. Sadness is so frequently attached to, and I use that word, attached to attachments. Frequently, sadness accompanies our attachments. What is it that we are attached to, that we fear that we're going to lose? What is it that we are attached to? Attached to, when we are attached to something and we lose it, we become disappointed. Whether it is, I'm attached to the outcome of the Dodgers baseball game, right? And they lose, and now I'm sad. But, right, whether it's something like that, or whether it's attachment to an idea that we had, whether it's an attachment to a hope that we may have had, whether it's attachment to a desire, whether it's attachment to a place, whether it's attachment to a person, whether it's attachment to a thing. When we fear that we're going to lose it, or when we have lost it, what do we experience? We experience disappointment. We experience sadness. We experience loss. So the Buddha teaches about non-attachment. Because when we are attached, then we become disappointed if something doesn't go our way, or if we lose something, we become disappointed, and then disappointment can then lead to suffering. And so the way out of suffering, the way the Buddha teaches it, the way out of suffering is non-attachment. The practice of non-attachment. And what we were calling it a few moments ago was practicing being present with what is. Being present with what is. Feeling your feelings all the way through to completion, and simply being present with the experience. Being present with what is. Not attached necessarily to outcomes, not attached to how we want somebody to show up in the world, not attached to results, not attached to people, places, things, not even attached to the way we think about the divine. It's easy to say. It's hard to do. And yet, when we breathe in and presence ourselves, in this now moment, I invite you just to breathe in and ask yourself, in this now moment, not 2 seconds ago, not 2 seconds from now, but right this minute, right this very second, nanosecond, as you breathe in, you'll find that all is well. All is perfect. All is whole. All is love. Breathe in right this second. Present yourself right here in this second. This second. This second. Here's where we find the divine. Here is where we find spirit. Here is how we find, where we find the who of who each one is. Right here, right now. So the beautiful poet, Amanda Gorman, you may recognize the name. She is the 24-year-old poet laureate who was the youngest poet to recite at the inauguration of a president. And this week, right after the Uvalde massacre, she wrote this hymn for the hurting. Hymn for the hurting. Everyone hurts. Our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddled and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children. Cannot be. Everything hurts. It's a hard time to be alive, and even harder to stay that way. We're burdened to live out these days, while at the same time blessed to outlive them. This alarm is how we know we must be altered, that we must differ or die, that we must triumph or try. Thus, while hate cannot be terminated, it can be transformed into a love that lets us live. May we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. May our signed right to bear arms never blind our sight from shared harm. May we choose our children over chaos. May another innocent never be lost. Maybe everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts, may everything change. And so what is the wisdom of sadness? We've talked about the wisdom of all the emotions, so what is the wisdom of sadness? The wisdom of sadness, the question is, what must be released? What must be let go of? What must be mourned? This is the wisdom of sadness. So in the sadness, we ask, what must be released? What must be let go of? What must be mourned? What must we let go of so that something new may emerge, so that something new and glorious may come forth? Valerie Kaur talks about the dark time as not a time of the tomb, but a time of the womb. So what is it that is being called forth? What is it that we are called to affirm? What is it that we are called to stand for? Because, my beloveds, when we experience this collective sadness, we have the opportunity to stop and assess and ask the questions. What must we release? Maybe it's time that we release our attachment to property and power and prosperity over people. Maybe it's time we release our fear of other. Maybe it's time that we release racism and violence. Maybe it's time that we release our feelings of superiority. Maybe it's time that we release and let go of everything, every idea that separates us. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to come together collectively, to work for the good, to express love, to show compassion, to really live out our values, to live out what it is that we envision. So this morning, as you came in, you received a copy of the Global Vision. You received a copy. Why is this here? You received a copy of our Global Vision. I want to share this with you. But before I do, your call to action this week, your tool for transformation, if you will, this week, is to look at and review our global vision, to really internalize it, to really see what it is that we stand for as Centers for Spiritual Living, that we stand for, that we see here at Riverside Center for Spiritual Living, which is a world that works for everyone in all of creation, a world that works for all. And then it is primary election season time. Beloveds, if you want to see change, if you want to experience change, yes, we need to be focused on our national collective, but it starts here. The Supreme Court justices don't become the Supreme Court justices just overnight. They start by running in local elections, like right here in Riverside, or right here in San Bernardino, or Vegas, or wherever you are in the world. The Attorney General starts here. local as the district attorney. The people who represent us in Washington start as your local county supervisor or city council person, your mayor. But I don't know about any of them. Learn. Learn who they are. Learn what they stand for. Learn and vote. It's a primary, yes, but it's primary. It's so important. And yeah, it's a midterm election, so yes, vote in fall. But I invite you to consider what it is that we stand for, what it is that we advocate for, what our vision of a world that works for everyone is, and then do your homework, do your research. This is spiritual practice, my beloveds. This is a transformational tool that will transform not only your individual lives, but the lives of the collective and the lives of generations moving forward. This is how we do it. So let us remember our global vision. Our global vision is we envision all people, all beings, and all life as expressions of God. We see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with one another. A world in which individually and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought, a world where each and every person discovers their own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. We embolden people to live their highest potential through the transformative power of love. This is what that statement is. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life, a world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and societal sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. We envision a world where each and every person has enough food, a home, and a sense of belonging, a world of peace and harmony, enfranchisement, and justice. We envision a world in which resources are valued and cared for and grown, and where there is a generous and continuous sharing of these resources. We envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. We envision a world that has renewed its emphasis on beauty, nature, and love through the resurgence of creativity, art, and aesthetics like we saw last week. And we envision a world that works for everyone and all of creation. So, beloveds, in honor of all of those who have laid down their lives in service to the collective good, whose memory that we share and celebrate this weekend, whether they are service members or first responders or children and teachers. In their memory, in their honor, I implore you, I ask of you, may we not just grieve, but give. May we not just ache, but act. Get out your ballots, fill them out, send them in. And so it is. I invite our practitioners to please stand and surround the sanctuary. And as they do, let's take a collective breath together and out and in together again and out. and just be present. Be present to what is. Allow it to be, allow it to move through you, allow yourself to experience it fully. And so I recognize right here and right now there is one power, one presence, one life, one infinite eternal that is expressing itself through itself, as itself, always and in all ways. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Spirit, and the Spirit was all that there was. Spirit is all that there is, and in the beginning the Word. And that which Spirit did not create was never ever created. So I know that all of life, all of creation is a divine emanation, an impartation of the one life of Spirit itself. And so therefore I know that I am that I am. I am one with it. It is the very essence of who I am. It is the very essence of who each one is. It is the essence of all of life, all of creation. It is the truth of love, of life, of wholeness, of perfection. This is the truth, and it is ever accessible, always accessible in the now moment, because there is only one moment ever, the now moment, right here, right now. There is no past, there is no future. There simply is the eternality, the oneness, the wholeness, the infinity of the divine, expressing right here, right now. And so I speak my word for this beloved community, Riverside Center for Spiritual Living, recognizing that each one gathered here this day, each one that we touch, each one that comes together in community, in common unity, in holy communion, conscious union with and as each other and with and as the one. I speak my word here for this beloved community, knowing that we open and allow ourselves to experience life to the fullest. Experiencing our highest potential, experiencing life, experiencing love, experiencing all of our emotions fully and completely, recognizing that it is the wisdom of the divine that is sharing, that is imparting its information, its wisdom through and as us. And so we open and we say yes to it. We open and we are receptive to it. And we allow it to have sway. We know that we are eternally guided, eternally guarded. That Spirit goes before us and makes the crooked places straight, that we simply follow, we simply come into alignment with it, and we follow, and we have faith and trust. And we act upon that which has been revealed for us to do this day, knowing that it is not I, but the Spirit within that does the work. So the power and the presence is already there, available. There is nothing to fear, there is nothing to worry about, and so I step forward, and I say yes to that which helps to create a world that works for everyone in all of creation. I speak my word here and now for its good, for the good of the whole, for the good of the totality of life itself, for the evolution of consciousness, for humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence. I call this forth in all those who are experiencing loss, who are experiencing separation, who are experiencing anything else other than what they can know and feel as the love of the divine. I call this forth now. I call forth love. I call forth joy. I call forth peace. I call forth bliss. I call forth equanimity. And so I simply know that I know that I know that I know that Spirit is all that there is. That love is all that there is. That life is all that there is. And so I trust in it. And I allow myself to be guided. The next indicated step. I simply surrender my will. Listen, here and now. I give thanks. I give thanks for life. I give thanks for love. I give thanks for this beloved community who comes together in support of one another, who comes together to share our joys and distribute and help carry our sorrows. And I release this word, assured of its fulfillment. I let it be. And so it is.
Love